Thanks, Tom. I'm just going to have to give you an agenda here. We'll do a couple of quick introductions of ourselves, and then I'll give a brief overview of the CFIA accredited vet program and the Scrapie Flock certification program, because those are critical elements of breeding sheep exports. And then I'm going to provide an overview of the requirements for export of breeding sheep to the US and Mexico, with a break in between for questions. And I guess I'll start, even though I have my drum up first. My name is Lois Valley. I graduated from the Ontario Vet College in '91 and did 3 years of mixed practice, and then I was in industry for a number of years. I joined the CFIA in 2014 and have had a number of roles since then. And currently I sit under my Drum Hebda in the Operational Specialist Unit Animal Health for Ontario. And I help to manage the operations in the field with exports, and that's why I'm here. And then I'll turn it over to my drum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Drum Hebda. I'm also a veterinarian, Atlantic Veterinary College, class of 2007. For those who like animals crossing the border, I was the vet at the Sarnia Bridge for 12, 13 years-ish before joining the Operational Specialist Unit, mostly responsible for imports and foreign animal disease, but currently acting manager in charge of my friends here.
And I'm Tom Cox. I am the old guy. I graduated from the Ontario Veterinary College in 1987. And I've been with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency since 1991. My areas of responsibility working with MyDrum are for animal transport, traceability, and foreign animal disease preparedness.
Okay. So we'll get started. So the CFIA accredited vet program was actually established in 1896, which was a surprise to me when I was getting ready to do this presentation. And it's established in order to authorize private veterinary practitioners to perform certain tasks in support of Canadian animal exports, because we weren't able to manage the capacity with the number of veterinarians we have in the agency for the demand for export that is always increasing. So veterinarians wishing to be accredited must be trained by CFIA to perform accredited functions and are required to sign a contract, so a legal contract stating they will conform to CFIA requirements while they're performing these functions, or they risk losing their accreditation. So the accredited functions that relate to sheep export include genotype testing for scrapie resistance, tuberculosis and brucellosis testing, Scrapie Flock certification, and certification of sheep exports to the US or Mexico. So if you're planning to export sheep to the US or Mexico and you don't currently have an established relationship with an accredited veterinarian, you need to do so, and you could inquire at your local CFIA district animal health office to find out who is in your district that would be able to provide you with service. So just a few minutes about the Scrapie Flock certification program, because I wasn't sure how aware. I'm sure probably I'm speaking to the converted, but just in case anyone's not aware, the Scrapie Flock certification program is a voluntary program. It's administered by Scrapie Canada, and small ruminant producers can choose to join if they wish. The objective of the SFCP is to provide owners with opportunity to have their flocks identified as negligible risk with respect to scrapie. So the program pathway is supervised by accredited veterinarians with the CFIA, and there are 7 levels included, from the entry level, which is level E, to the certified level with addition of the potential higher level of a certified plus. A minimum of 5 years, one each at each of the levels, E, D, C, B, and then finally A as the final level, is necessary for a participating flock to reach the certified level. And once a flock has reached the certified level, it can maintain this level provided that applicable requirements continue to be met. And these would be have oversight by your accredited veterinarian, and they include annual animal inventory, scrapie testing of any mature dead stock, absence of any clinical signs pertinent or that could be scrapie, and prevention of exposure to animals or flocks of lesser health status. If an owner wishes to advance to the certified plus level, which is required for export to Mexico, a minimum of 7 years in the program is required, along with additional sampling requirements. So I just wanted to briefly present a little bit of a review on scrapie and the basis of scrapie genotyping. So scrapie is caused by an infectious prion protein, which is abnormally folded in the brain. And once introduced into the brain of the animal, it converts normal host prion proteins to convert to this same abnormal form. And as that process continues, it leads to neurodegeneration of the animal and eventually death. So the accumulation of abnormal prion protein in the brain is believed to cause clinical signs of the disease. And it, through research, it's become apparent that genetic makeup is a significant factor in sheep in terms of susceptibility or resistance to infection with scrapie prion. So there's different forms of the normal sheep prion. So prion is a normal protein in the brain, and there are different forms. And some forms have been found to be highly susceptible or linked to susceptibility to structural transformation found in scrapie disease, while other forms are associated with resistance. So for scrapie susceptibility in sheep, 2 specific codons are given primary importance, and this is based on research. So 171 and 136. And the presence of an arginine amino acid, which is indicated as an R, at codon 171 of the prion protein confers resistance, while the presence of glutamine, which is represented by Q at codon 171 is associated with susceptibility. Similarly, on alanine A at codon 136, there is conferred resistance, while the presence of valine or V at codon 136 confers susceptibility. So in summary, AARR genotype is very good with negligible susceptibility, and any of the combinations with QQ are bad. So now I'll get into reviewing the requirements for export of breeding sheep to the US. And I think it's important to just point out that while the CFIA is responsible for ensuring that certificate requirements are met for any animal or products that leave the country, specific export requirements are set by the importing country and not by the CFIA. So don't shoot the messenger is sort of the message behind that. So the first step in the process of exporting breeding sheep to the US is for the importer to apply to the USDA for an import permit. And access to the electronic import permit application platform is available on the USDA website under the Animal Health Permits section. and the permit is valid for 14 days following the proposed arrival date of the sheep at their destination in the U.S. So this is the health certificate, HA1944, which must be completed by your accredited veterinarian and then certified by a CFIA veterinarian. The reference number at the top right is assigned by the local CFIA district office. The tombstone information required includes the names and addresses of the exporter and importer and Scrapie flock program identifiers, if applicable. And at the bottom, it's required that the routing be detailed, and that must include names of the main highways to be followed in Canada and the US, and the specific location where the animals were loaded in Canada. So in this section of the certificate, starting here, the accredited vet confirms that the animals were born in Canada, or if they're of US origin, they have been resident in the flock for at least 60 days, and that Canada is free of the listed foreign animal diseases and has a Scrapie control program. And then finally at the bottom, Section D states that the animals being exported were born after implementation of the March 1st, 1999 ruminant to ruminant feed ban. So sections 4, 5, and 6 of this certificate relate to the Scrapie status of the export sheep. And in order to export breeding sheep, one of the following conditions must apply. Either the flock has achieved Certified Plus on the Scrapie Flock Certification Program, or individual animals that are being exported must be tested to be a resistant genotype. Rams of genotype AARR or AAQR can be exported. Female sheep must be AARR, and APHIS requires a case-by-case evaluation whereby the accredited veterinarian must make a due inquiry to ensure that no animals that have resided on the premises of residence have tested positive for Scrapie in the past 10 years, and the premises is not currently being investigated for exposure to Scrapie. And this option only applies if the animals for export were born and raised on that premise of export. So if the animals have resided on multiple premises, additional certification and documentation will be required. And this is an APHIS requirement. So the results for this case-by-case investigation have to be provided to the USDA in order to obtain the import permit. So this same requirement for a case-by-case evaluation applies for male sheep with these very rare genotypes of AAKR or AAHR. Section 5 here relates to females that are implanted with an embryo, and this is likely an extremely rare situation. So if that was something that you were interested in, that would be something to be discussed in the future with your district office for further information. It's a bit more involved. And in section 6, there's further dictated that if breeding females are being exported, they have only been bred or exposed to TB brucellosis-free rams and have not resided in a flock that has had a case of Scrapie. And moving on, section 7 states that each animal to be exported must be identified with a brand or tattoo, and sections 9 and 10 apply to goats. In section 11, the accredited vet verifies that the sheep have been inspected within 30 days of export and show no signs of infectious disease. And further in section 12, that the sheep have not been exposed to animals of lower health status or infectious diseases during the 60-day period prior to export. Finally, the conveyance that will be used to export the sheep has to have been cleaned and disinfected to CFIA standard against prion diseases. So this is the bottom of the certificate, and here you can see there is a section where the accredited vet signs the document, and the date here would be the date of inspection of the animals. And then the certificate would be taken to the local district office, CFIA district office, for review and certification. The certificate is valid then for 30 days from the date of the accredited vet's inspection of the animals. Sorry, I was getting a cramp in my hand. Okay, so this is the final page of the certificate, and it's where the individual animals being exported are listed with their ID, age, sex, breed, color markings, and registration numbers if that's applicable. And it's important. We've just gone over the USDA requirements for export of breeding sheep to the US in general, but individual states may have specific requirements that differ or exceed the USDA requirements, and it is the exporter's responsibility to ensure that any additional requirements are met. So now I'd be happy to try and answer any general questions on export of breeding sheep to the US.